The game of chess. Some people play this game, about 7% of the world. It was invented around the 600th CE, making it a very old game. However, this game has been through many changes throughout its history. Some of these changes include castling, pawn movement, promotion rules, and much more. Now, even though it is a very old game, to some people, it is still a fun game to play. This is a pawn, and this is how it moves. The pawn can move one square in front of it, and pawns can capture pieces that are one square diagonally in front of it, like this. After any piece captures another piece, it must go to the square of the captured piece. Pawns may also move two squares if they have not moved yet in the game. After the pawn has moved from its homing square, it cannot move two squares again. This is a knight, and it moves two squares horizontally or vertically, then it moves one square to the side. The knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. For example, in this position, the knight, even though there are two pieces right here, the knight can still jump over them. This is the bishop, and it can move diagonally in any number of squares it wants. The bishop must stay on this color square that it started on. So for example, if it started on a dark square, it must stay on a dark square the entire game. This bishop can capture either this pawn or this pawn. Like that. This is the rook, and it moves vertically and horizontally in any number of squares it wants. Like that. The rook also has a special move called castling. Castling looks like this. The king moves over here, and the rook moves over here. This is one move legally, and this is one of the only moves where you can move two pieces at the same time. There is also a second side to castling, and it is called queenside castling. The one where the king goes here and the rook goes here, is called kingside castling. The king moves. It's basically the same thing, but the king moves 3 squares and the rook moves 4 squares, and it's on the queen side. So yeah, the queen could move like the rook and the bishop combined, meaning it can move diagonally, and it can also move horizontally and vertically. This is the king, and the king can move in any direction it wants, just like the queen. But unlike the queen, it can only move one square. It cannot move 4 or 5 or 3 or 8. Another thing to the king is, if another king is like also guarding these squares that the enemy king also guards, the king cannot go to these squares. It cannot. So this king can only go to these squares, and this king can only go to these squares because these 3 squares they both control, and therefore they cannot go into, because that's like a rule of chess, and I didn't make the rules of chess, so yeah. Checkmate is when a piece checks the king like that, but the king cannot capture or run or block. So this is what is called checkmate, and when you checkmate your opponent, you win. A draw occurs when one side moves a piece, but the enemy side has no legal move. So, like, in this position, black has no legal move. He or she cannot move their king because the king would be going into check, and there's like no other pieces on the board, so there's no way for black to win. no, no, no way for black to move. Yeah, sorry, no way for black to move. So this is what people call a stalemate or a draw.